Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Megan Hardy, and I am the founder of Fitness Uncharted, which is a women's health and fitness coaching company that I created to help women lose body fat, build lean muscle, improve their metabolism, and to transform their bodies from the inside out. And today, you guys, on this episode, we're going to talk about pre-dieting. And I'm going to give you a pre-dieting checklist for successful fat loss. Okay. And I also apologize. I feel like I'm super low energy right now. I don't know. I'm feeling very like I'm recording right now at a different time, a different day of the week and a different time than I normally do. And I don't know. Last night I got pretty good sleep, I think, but I do remember waking up in the middle of the night because I flailed my arm over and my arm hit my nightstand. And so it like was a big thunk. And we actually let Oreo, our sheepadoodle puppy girl, sleep in the bed with us last night. We always do that when we're gone for a large part of the day. We let her sleep with us because we left her for a good chunk of the day. So anyway, she was sleeping with us. So of course she was taking up a large chunk of the bed. I flopped over and thunked the nightstand. So I remember waking up because she started like growling because she didn't know what it was. And and then that made Justin, my husband, wake up and like jolt up out of bed, and like he was going to go check it out or whatever he thought it was. And I was like, I knew I was still in my groggy, sleepy state, but I knew it was me that had gotten everyone up in arms. I was like, no, no, no. I was like, I'll remember vaguely. Is like, babe, it's fine. Like, it was me. It was me. It was me. Like, go back to bed. Everybody, go back to bed. But anyway, otherwise, I don't know why I'm sleepy, but I'm kind of sleepy. So anyway, let's jump in. Today is I'm going to give you a pre-dieting checklist for successful fat loss. And before we dive into that, let's first define what I mean by quote unquote successful fat loss. Like, what does that mean? Because, a lot of people know how to lose weight or even lose fat, but the hard part is keeping it off, right? Or I would consider, diets and things that where you lose a lot of weight, but you regain it back afterwards. I would say that that's not successful, that you are not successful at weight loss or fat loss if you couldn't maintain it afterwards. Like, I don't really care if you can lose weight if you don't know how to maintain it, right? And the hard part and the sad part too is every time that we diet and we lose weight and regain the weight, our metabolism takes a hit. So you actually end up worse off than if you had never dieted and before, because your metabolism every time will probably down regulate, especially if you were doing anything super severe or restrictive, and your body will actually start to burn less calories. Your maintenance calories will actually be lower than they were before you dieted if you don't do any kind of metabolism repair. So, to me, that's not successful. I could name out a lot of different fad diets that claim very fast weight loss, Optavia, all those diets out there where really you're just eating like 800 calories and lose a ton of weight really fast. Well, duh, you're eating like sub 1,000 calories. You're gonna lose a lot of weight. A lot of that's probably muscle, sad to say. But also, as soon as people end the diet or resume eating like a normal human being, they gain the weight back more often than not, or at least a good chunk of it back. And the sad part about that too is if they lose weight and a part of that's body fat and some of that's muscle mass, what they gain back is not going to be muscle mass. I can tell you that it's going to be body fat that they gain back. So they've probably lost muscle. And when they regain the weight, they're replacing that muscle that they lost with more body fat, which is only going to lower their metabolism even more. Just not good all around. So that's what an unsuccessful diet looks like or fat loss looks like. So let's talk about what does successful fat loss mean? First and foremost, that's getting the weight off or getting the body fat off. Of course, that's step one. We got to get it off, right? Step two is to keep it off. That's what successful fat loss is keeping it off and being able to maintain it, being able to have the lifestyle where it's actually possible and realistic to sustain it. And then number three, successful fat loss and successful weight loss is losing the right kind of weight. So we've already touched on this, but that means losing mostly body fat and not muscle mass. There have been a lot of scans and studies and things. Actually, if you go back to one of the prior episodes that we did with Melissa Ambrose, where I did a DEXA scan with her, body scan, and she was telling me about a lot of different diets and things people are doing where they're losing a lot of weight, but they come in for these body scans and 50% of the weight they lost was muscle mass, which is not good and not good. It should not be anywhere close to that. When you do go into a fat loss or a weight loss phase, some muscle loss is probable and likely. Like you will have a hard time not having your body not break down some of your lean muscle tissue, but there's a lot that we can do to maintain a high level of muscle mass even during a fat loss phase. But with super severe and restrictive diets or super low calorie deficits, you're probably losing a lot more muscle mass than you want, and you're getting like a false gratification that the scale is dropping super fast when you're not actually losing the right kind of weight that you want to, because you're going to end up with a lower metabolism and looking skinny fat if you lose a bunch of muscle mass in the process. So to be successful, it's like, let's make sure we're losing the right kind of weight, right? And the thing is, most people, they don't have a problem losing weight. They have a problem with maintaining it. You can do, go choose whatever diet you want, keto, Weight Watchers, Optavia, like, pick a diet and lose some weight. You'll probably lose weight. We all know how to lose weight, like eat less, move more, pick a diet, whichever one you want, whichever one suits your fancy, whichever one has the most crazy claims, whatever, you could lose weight. Like we all actually probably know how to lose weight, but most people don't know how to maintain it because what they did to lose the weight initially probably wasn't sustainable. And again, like I said, every time you do something where you're losing weight, it's not sustainable, you gain it back, you do more damage to your metabolism, which then makes it harder and harder and harder for you to lose weight and even get back to that baseline every time you go to a new diet. And what's probably happened, and what's the case for a lot of people, is most people probably skip this pre-dieting checklist that I'm going to cover with you today. And this checklist is looking at behavioral changes that you need to make to get consistent with before ever considering a cut or a calorie deficit or a fat loss phase. And that is always why I start my clients in a metabolism repair phase. Like more often than not, they've probably already been dieting for a long time, or they just need to get consistent with some of the basics first. So I'm not going to throw someone into a fat loss phase who needs to get consistent with some of the basics or they've been dieting for a long time. Most people are trying to jump right into the fat loss phase before looking at behavior change. And again, you're not going to be able to keep the weight off if you don't first start with the behavior. So this lifestyle checklist, in no particular order, I'm just going to cover what I would be looking at if you're someone who has weight or body fat to lose, or you just want to go into a cut to see more like lean muscle to show more muscle definition. Whatever your goal is, truth be told, if it has anything to do with cutting, shredding, toning, leaning out, losing weight, this would apply to you. This also applies if you're just trying to live a healthy lifestyle too, and just looking at longevity as well. All of these factors apply. But in no particular order, first and foremost, before you start any kind of fat loss phase, you need to make sure your food is in order. So that's going to look like water, that's balanced meals, that's high protein, that is consistency with your macros, your food quality, your meals, balanced meals throughout the day, and then also 80 to 90% whole foods. And you need to look at this before you even actually look at calories or macros. I would first focus on improving your food quality. I have a lot of people who want to jump right into macros, or they want to, jump right into like the nitty gritty because they think that that's what they're signing up for if they start this program or whatever. And I'm like, you could be eating the right macros, but if you're filling it with processed crappy food, it's not going to have the effect that you want. You're not going to feel as good as you could. Like, for an example, like you could have two versions of a 2000 calorie diet. And one could leave you like on this blood sugar roller coaster and, feeling like crap, super inflamed, highly processed foods, even if you are hitting your macros, but you're not looking at the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals, versus a diet where you're having mostly whole foods, 80, 90% whole foods, limited processing. The thing is, most of our food is processed unless if you literally like pull it right off the vine. Like everything's like a little bit processed, but it's like there's a difference between like minimally processed and highly processed foods. But those, even if they're both 2000 calories, the food quality makes such a big difference. So, with that, with your food, before you ever start trying to cut calories or any of that before fat loss phase, you need to make sure that you're drinking at least half your body weight in water plus 15 ounces, plus more if you are working out or sweating a lot. Okay. Also, if you can add electrolytes into that, because that's the other thing, there is such a thing as drinking too much water. I've talked to people who are like, yeah, I drink 2 gallons of water a day. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord, dear sweet baby Jesus, are you replacing some of your minerals? Because, oh my gosh, you've got to be so depleted because you can basically flush out all your minerals if you're not replacing them with more minerals and those electrolytes. So, a good rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces of water per day, also plus 15 ounces or so, and then more if you're working out and sweating. And then also still adding in like a serving or two of electrolytes would be really great. And then balanced meals. So this should be like a carb, a protein, and a fat at every meal. So really what I try to focus on is like a protein and a carb because a lot of protein sources have some fat in them. So for example, like a lot of healthy option protein sources and not healthy, but even the healthy ones. So even think like any of your protein sources like meats. Most meats have some percentage of fats in them as well, even if you are doing lean. So like I might do like 93% lean ground beef, but that means that 7% is fat in there, right? So there's some fats. And that fat is fine. I try to get grass-fed beef when I can, whatever, but like, okay, that's some fat at my meal. Or if you're having eggs, there is fat and protein in an egg. And then of course your cooking oils and things like that. So if you're using olive oil or avocado oil or any of those types of things, coconut oil, you're also getting healthy fats in there too. So I find it's easy to primarily focus on, okay, what's my protein and my carb? And then also like want to have some healthy fat to make that a balanced meal as well. And then also, you can kind of do the like split your plate. So you want, like 25% protein, 25% like starchier, like, or like, starchier carbs, and then like 50% being veggies and colorful veggies or fruit. So, making sure that you're having those balanced meals throughout the day and starting there first. It seems super basic, but like some people just want to jump right into, okay, how many calories do I need to eat? Like I'll just cut calories, and then they're eating, maybe one meal a day. And that one meal is 2 pieces of pizza, right? And they've hit their calories for the day. It's like, okay, that's not what we're talking about. So balanced meals, high protein, that goes along with it. So a good rule of thumb is about 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of goal body weight. For ease, I usually just say about 1 gram per pound of goal body weight. It fluctuates or differs some depending on your goals, your age, your body composition, all that good stuff. But like that's a good rule of thumb. And pretty easy to remember. So like high protein. So you're getting protein at every meal and snack. So that's a really basic behavior and habit to start forming. And then 80 to 90% whole foods. So we already talked about this. Like calories and macros only go but so far if you're filling those calories and macros with crappy food. So you could hit your macros, like you could eat, donuts and hit your carb and fat goal, but that's going to be way different than eating a sweet potato and some nuts and seeds to hit your carb and fat goals, right? So, 80 to 90% should be whole foods, lean proteins, fruits and veggies, and then leave 10 to 20% for the fun foods, because that's that balance of, okay, I can have two cookies, depending on the size, but like, okay, I can have two or three Oreo cookies as a sweet treat tonight or whatever. Like that's the balance. And that's also going to help us to avoid, binging or overindulging or feeling restricted later. But 80 to 90% should be whole foods. Okay. So that's that habit to build in before you even try to create a calorie deficit or go into a fat loss phase. And then consistency. So this is a really big one. This is something that we usually start with our clients who are, whether they've been tracking for a while, if they're tracking macros, or they're completely brand new. We first want to get them consistent. So I was actually just talking with a client yesterday. We had a metabolic assessment together, and her range of calories was 1,600 to 2,300 calories. Some days she was as low as 1,600 and some days as high as 2,300. That's a really big swing. And you can imagine on the days that she's eating 2,300 calories, she probably isn't getting that from a bunch of really clean whole food sources, right? Those were probably more or less like weekend days and things like that. But that means like, looking at through her food log those days, 90% of her food that those days was not great choices, right? So we need to get more consistent with eating whatever our calorie goal is, and also with that 80 to 90% whole foods, that, kind of 80-20 rule of 80% whole food, 20% fun food, doing that every day of the week. Not going, okay, I'm going to eat 80-20. And that means Monday through Friday, I eat really good. And Saturday, Sunday, I go balls to the walls and eat whatever I want. That's not what we're talking about. We need to get consistent throughout the whole week, looking at all 7 days. So those are really big ones. Those are like our big rocks for the food category. That is your lifestyle checklist for food. Okay. Water, balanced meals, whole foods, consistency, high protein. And did I leave anything else out? I think that's it. So like start there. Those are those big rocks before you ever try to pull calories down. You need to start there. And what's the coolest thing, you guys, is this is a part of, like I said, our metabolism repair phase. We're addressing some of these things for people, and they start to see positive improvements and body composition changes just from doing these things before we ever have to cut calories. That is the beautiful part about this. So start there. And then number 2 for our lifestyle checklist is activity. So this is where you need to be looking at steps and workouts. And my suggestion is always to ask yourself, what will you commit to for life? So I don't want, when someone joins my program, they're like, "Oh, how many days should I work out?" I'm like, "How many days can you commit to working out?" It depends on the person, it depends on your goals, your lifestyle, and what you can commit to. And, if you are like, okay, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to work out 7 days a week, but then you eventually stop working out 7 days a week because it's not realistic for you, and also not necessary. Side note, but if you then all of a sudden are only working out 2 or 3 days a week, just from the lack of those extra workouts, you're probably going to see a negative shift in your body composition, or gain some weight back just because of the change in activity and the amount and volume of activity that you were doing versus what you're doing now. And same thing with steps. So I always recommend setting a step goal for yourself. If you do not wear any kind of pedometer, uh, get one. Like I have an Apple Watch and I use it pretty religiously to know what my daily steps are. If I did not have like tabs on my daily steps, I would probably end every day with 3,000 steps. My goal is 10,000. I like to aim for like as a stretch goal every day, getting over 12,000, but minimum 10. But that's going to look different for everyone too. So if you're currently, only getting 3,000 steps, maybe your step goal is 5,000 with a stretch goal of 6,000 steps. Or, if you're getting 5,000 currently, maybe you set a goal of 7,000 with a stretch goal of 8,000 steps. Wherever you're at, set that goal. It's going to look different for everyone. But you need to have a standard for your steps that you need to hit every day. to be consistent with. And it's not like there's anything magical about the steps. It's just the activity and the movement. And steps are a way to quantify that, because otherwise it's kind of hard in our day to day to quantify like how much was I moving or not moving. So get some kind of step tracker. You can use your iPhone or your phones, like if they have that on there, but I don't really prefer that, just because, if you put your phone down at any point and you take steps, it's obviously not going to count it. Like if you go to the bathroom and leave your phone at your desk, like it's not going to count those. So it's not super accurate, obviously. But you can get, obviously you could get a smartwatch like a Garmin or Fitbit or Apple, something like that. Or you can get, like, Walmart has like step tracker watches that are literally like $10 just so that you can wear it and track your steps. That's all it does. So do that and set a step goal for yourself. Get really consistent with your steps. They are very underrated, but your steps are actually even more important than the workouts, especially as far as like fat loss goals, because it's our movement outside of our workouts, not just that 45 minutes or hour every day that you might be working out. That's like 4% of your day, your workout. If you work out for an hour a day, that's a 4% of your day. That's not much. So your activity outside of your workout, both in, steps and also your non-exercise activity, just like fidgeting and, doing things like throughout your day, like laundry or whatever, where you're not intentionally trying to work out, but you're moving, that makes up for way more of your calorie burn than your workout does for the day. But along with that, we also want to set a standard and a baseline for our workouts. So, what can you commit to? Is that 3 workouts, 4 workouts, 5 workouts? And get really consistent with that every week. Of course, you might have those weeks where you're sick and can't get one or whatever, but get really consistent with your steps and your workouts before you ever look at starting a fat loss phase. And then lastly, our last lifestyle checklist point is sleep. So this is one that, I have a lot of women who are like, oh my gosh, I'll wake up early and, I got to go to bed late, but I'll only get 4 hours of sleep, but that's fine. I'll get up and get my workout in and, put myself in a calorie deficit, blah, 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 blah. They want to do it all. And I'm like, we actually should prioritize your sleep for your hormone health and your metabolism. Sleep is so crucial. Like, especially if you are already in a high stress state, sleep is so important for my perimenopause and menopause ladies. Sleep is like priority number one. Is we have to prioritize our sleep, and not only sleep quantity but sleep quality. So having like a wind down routine, being able to get 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep being so crucial. If you missed the episode I did with Johan Bretz, he came on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and go check that out if you missed that episode. We gave a bunch of tips and suggestions for quality sleep. So I won't get into all of those right here, but it is crucial for your fat loss efforts, and for recovery, for muscle gains, for everything. So if you are trying to start a fat loss phase or lose weight or body fat, the best thing you could do for yourself and your long-term goals is get more sleep, get enough sleep. So those are your checklists right there in like 3 columns of categories: food, your activity, and your sleep. Until you are doing those things consistently and you have changed your behaviors, don't even attempt a fat loss phase. Like, any weight that you do lose, like, you will probably regain after you stop doing the diet. If you haven't changed your habits and behaviors, that weight is going to be really hard to keep off, and you may end up gaining it back plus more. And until you're doing these things consistently, the other thing to note too, you guys, is stop worrying about the minutia, like meal timing or supplements. What are the best supplements to take, or any of that stuff? Like, I get asked about that stuff a lot. You know, hey Megan, like, which supplement is better? Like, which ones would you suggest? Like, if I, could only take one, whatever. I'm like, oh, creatine's really great. Like, but even that, I'm like, it's not necessary though. Like, it's not a must. It's one of the most like researched and scientifically backed for like your mitochondria, your mental, cognitive function, for muscle building, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, it's not more important than the big rocks. And people want to skip the behavior changes in those big rocks and they want to jump to supplements and meal timing and blah, 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 blah. And that's where the overwhelm comes in because people want to skip the basics. They want to skip that stuff. But all of that other stuff is just noise. It is a drop in the bucket compared to those big behavioral rocks. Building your consistency with these habits is how you're going to create the lifestyle that is required for you to keep the weight off or maintain the body composition that you worked so hard for during a fat loss phase. And this is also how you're able to maintain a lean physique year round, even when you're eating at maintenance, or even if you have some days over maintenance in a surplus. That this is how you're going to be able to handle vacations and holidays and all the other fun stuff throughout the year, because even when you're not being super, super dialed in, you're not, tracking macros diligently and, not being as disciplined, you still fall back to these basic habits that you've formed. You still have this baseline. And this is how you're going to be able to actually one day step away from tracking your food every day, and how, like me, you'll be able to just use tracking as a tool here and there to dial things in as needed. That's how, if you find eventually it's like you'll get to a place where you're not tracking your food every day. If you are someone who's tracking macros, that's in the third phase of our program. It's our mastery phase where we teach clients how to wean them off of tracking into more intuitive eating now that they've reached their body composition goals. And we want this to become a long-term lifestyle and solution, not just another diet where they have to like meticulously track for the rest of their life. And the reason why they're able to do that is, one, they've learned how to eat for their bodies and they've learned proper nutrition for their bodies by tracking macros, for some of them. But then also they've built these baseline behavioral habits in. That's a huge portion of what we're working on throughout their entire program. They've built these things in, which allows you to have more freedom. But your floor has changed. Like your old floor, like the baseline, the minimum that you would do prior was probably a lot less as far as eating clean and, moving your body and activity and steps. Now you have this new baseline that you've set for yourself. And that is how you're going to make this lifestyle. These habits need to become your new standard, your new floor. Until then, like, don't even waste your time with a fat loss phase. Like, it's probably not going to be super successful. Your fat loss phase won't be as effective, if even successful at all. And you'll be lucky to keep the weight off if you don't set this baseline for yourself first. Okay. So you have to do that. Like go back through and listen to this again, or write it down, like have your pre-dieting checklist and make sure you're doing all those things and that you've gotten super consistent with those things before moving on to step 2. And phase 2 of our program is fat loss and muscle makeover. That's where all of this stuff is coming together. And now you're actually ready to move into an active fat loss phase. But we have to check these things off first and make these behavior changes. And if you're completely brand new to this whole thing and you need help or accountability and you don't want to do it alone, or say you're already doing everything on this checklist, first of all, props to you for doing that, but you need help, taking your results to the next level. Well, what you can do is you can apply for one-on-one coaching by scrolling down to the show notes and clicking the link to book a call with me. What we'll do is we'll have a basic conversation about you and your goals, and just to see if we might be a good fit to work together. And if you don't need any help, that's cool too. Keep enjoying the podcast, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.